Hey, Sean, I was curious what your breakfast routine looks like every morning at your house.
It usually includes me not eating and just preparing breakfast and trying to get a 3-year-old to eat.
So you're like the dog underneath the table, just like hoping for scraps of bacon and eggs and things like that.
Usually, yeah. I'm seriously. I get like whatever my kid doesn't eat. I'm like, you're it's Blue's Clues time. I'll take those banana slices. All right. Yeah. No, I mean, if I have breakfast, it's usually like either I'll have cereal or I'm a bacon and eggs guy.
Yeah,
It's usually one of those.
yeah, I do. It's kind of like the power bomb is what it's jokingly called at my house. I run in the morning and then I come back ravenous and I have a smoothie with one of those NutriBullets, and it is um, blueberries, blackberries, whole fat yogurt, olive oil, natural peanut butter, avocado, cauliflower rice. Let me see
26
what else.
ingredients later, you've got
What's that?
something that's
Oh,
that's
and
inedible.
it's so good, so crazy. I'll throw some cherries or peaches or whatever in there
Yeah.
sometimes too. And so we have this constant cycle of keeping up with all my breakfast needs in the morning.
Yeah.
So like this is my thing, and it's so good, but it almost puts me to sleep when I'm done. So
Yeah, I imagine. I did that for a while. I went through that phase, and every now and then I do. I go through that phase of like the breakfast smoothies and trying to
yeah,
be really healthy, and I'll have like
yeah.
protein powder and shakes and all that stuff. And then eventually I just like, fuck it, it's Friday, I'm ordering pizza and hot wings.
So the reason I bring this up is because my story this week is about a poisoning. There's actually multiple poisonings of food within a family, and I was curious. Do you ever worry about
My
when you
wife
go out to
poisoning
eat
me, yes, every day.
every day?
That's why
Who's do
I make my own breakfast. If I can't crack that egg myself, I don't trust it.
right? You ever get a little paranoid when you don't mean to be rude when you go out to a restaurant, but you kind of can't help it. Like if you got sour cream on your plate or something, and do you ever worry that the waiter's gonna, slip you a Mickey or give you a little tainted food or anything? Any worries about that?
No, but I mean, I am always, if I go to a drive-through or something, or even like at a restaurant, I am always really friendly to the servers and to those people. Not only because, I mean, why wouldn't you be, but how hard was it? And you've heard so many stories of people who like spit in your
Yeah.
food of an asshole customer. Like, go on Reddit sometime and just like look that stuff up where somebody's like, yeah, I worked at a place, guy was a jerk, and I rubbed, whatever. Uh, you know what I mean? Or like there,
Oh, I know what you mean.
yeah. Yeah, no, I'm always nice to those people. So I don't worry too much about that. I do worry about like finding a hair or a random thing in
Right.
my food though. I got
Yeah. That's
and
all. That's all you got to say. So I think we both have sort of food related topics for this episode, and just my kind of preview of my episode is I'm calling this "Murder by Root Beer Float," and it
and together our stories will make a complete breakfast,
yeah. Well,
albeit an unhealthy one.
and by the way, the reason I asked about breakfast is because the root beer float was consumed during breakfast, and I have questions about that.
Yeah.
So
What a way to
uh,
start the day.
yeah, what a great way to. I've never ever thought of that.
Vanilla
So
ice cream and sugar water.
yeah, exactly. So my story is about a series of poisonings that happened within a family and did not end well for pretty much everyone involved. What do you got?
Well, it is really odd that we both have some kind of breakfast related story because that wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to ask you the same question. What is your favorite breakfast food?
I
Not even
so
not even what you start out. I know you said what you start out with every day, but like when
yeah.
you just go for it and you don't think about health or whatever, what's your
I
favorite thing?
I think it's bacon and eggs with, if I can do it, grits and some biscuits, and just like delicious creamy scrambled eggs are just incredible.
Creamy scrambled eggs?
Yeah, like soft scrambled.
Okay. Yeah, can't do that. They got to be I want to be able to bounce them off the floor if or off the table, not the floor. I am a French toast guy, right? And I absolutely love French toast, and I'm one of those guys who, to me, people are either one way or the other with their maple syrup. You either like there's just a dab on there, or you're like me, where it's like, and it's just like a pool of maple syrup with some French toast floating around in it. That's me. Um, I want it as unhealthy as I can when I do eat it, and to make myself feel better, I'll throw a little chopped fruit on there.
Healthy.
You know, but what I'll bet you didn't know about maple syrup is there's actually a maple syrup black market
Interesting.
and a maple syrup cartel.
Uh-huh.
Kind of. Weren't expecting that, were you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
90-degree turn. From 2011 to 2012, several people pulled off one of the greatest and most valuable heists in Canadian history with a kind of ingenious plan and what became known as the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist.
That sounds that sounds delicious.
It's a delicious story. Yeah. I'm Sean Kipe, and I'm here with Jason Hoke. This is our little Friday episode of How It All Went South. Welcome to the show.
Okay, so we're back, and I'm going to start in on the food related breakfasty stories today, and it involves this story's kind of floated around the last couple of years, end of 2022, but it really popped again in 2023, and then I found this story because it's percolated again the last couple of weeks, and I had not heard of this at all, and so it involves a man named Harold Peanut Allen. Gotta love that name. His wife, Marsha, and her daughter, Ashley Jones, in Jackson County in Indiana. And for some reason, Harold's wife and her daughter wanted him dead, like really dead. So they
not kind of dead.
No, they wanted him really dead. So they tried to poison him 3 times. And the lengths that they went to do this, how they did it, is what I'm going to talk about today. So Harold Allen was found dead in December of 2022. And at the time he's dead, there's no charges filed, maybe not any suspicious behavior happening or anything like that. Harold's in his 50s when he dies. And it's possible that the story could have ended there, save for what happened in October of 2023. So Marsha Allen, the wife of Harold, had called police about a burglary at her home. And the police quickly identified 2 men. Their names were Stephen White and Nathaniel Kane Napier as the 2 that had committed the burglary. So upon questioning the 2, they discovered that it was Marsha's daughter, Ashley Jones, who had directed and assisted in the burglary plans. So why is she wanting to do that to this man? It's not her natural father, but still, it's who her mother is married to, and feels really suspicious. So while they're talking to Stephen White, one of the 2 men at that scene, he just kind of almost casually says, Marsha had previously murdered the husband by poisoning him somehow.
Like in a previous marriage?
No,
or in this one?
In this one. So no one knew why he died. And this guy just says he's robbed the house. And he's like, oh, well, she murdered him by poisoning him somehow. So that starts all this kind of investigation happening. So investigators are digging deeper. And of course, they recovered text messages between the mother and daughter about the poisoning of Marsha's husband, Harold. This is Peanut again. I'm going to keep saying Peanut.
The text messages. When will people learn?
Yes, I actually have that written down. When will people learn? So, um, police questioned Marsha about this. She was released, and members of her family contacted police within the next day or so because they weren't able to reach her. Well, they found Marsha dead in her home in October of 2023, and the release said with no signs of violence. They're assuming it was a suicide um, because she knew that she was in trouble for probably doing this. So, what exactly happened that led up to this point where Harold is dead and now his wife Marsha are also dead?
And now his murderer is dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of them,
Right.
because the
Right.
stepdaughter is still out there.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a conspiracy by Marsha and Ashley in 2022 to kill him, and they were looking to poison him and tried to do it multiple times. So poison number one, as far as we know, this is poisoning number one. How did it start? They used foxglove seeds. Foxglove seeds. Let me repeat that. These are seeds that are toxic, and if too much is consumed, obviously bad things happen. Have you ever heard of foxglove seeds?
I want to say I have, and I don't remember where or in what context, but I want to say I've heard of that somewhere.
Yeah, I just I typed in foxglove seeds, probably like everyone's doing right now that doesn't have any idea, and I get on Google kind of a layout that looks like a gardening page with pretty pictures and when you should plant them. You know how they auto populate search results sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very charming and beautiful and the kind of search that maybe my mom would do for planting stuff in her garden, not for how to poison someone to kill them.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit surprised. It's so strange and specific.
Yeah. And I wonder, is there a reason for that? Because I mean, there are other things like isn't even peach pits. If you eat peach pits, are seriously? I mean, like, isn't it toxic? It's either like peach pits or avocado pits. So one of those is toxic if you eat it.
You
Cherry
know,
pits, aren't they?
have you ever who's eaten an avocado
No,
pit?
but I mean,
I know.
if you were to like, my point is like foxglove seed is such a specific thing. When I think, you know, there are probably other things, even if you wanted to go in the plant family or, death by fruit,
Right.
there are probably other things that seem like they'd be more common that
Yeah.
you could grind it up or whatever you do.
Yeah, I know. I
It's
feel the
weird.
same way. So I was curious what the symptoms were when you consume foxglove seeds. Does it instantly kill you, or is this what happens here? So there are a long list of symptoms if you consume it. Irregular or slow heartbeat. You can collapse. You can have low blood pressure, but also all the usuals: vomiting, diarrhea, rash, hives, confusion, and on and on. So Ashley Jones texted her mother, Martha, just days before that, and she said, "You can't touch the plant," and that wearing gloves was necessary. So, going back, of course, they're texting like, "Make sure you don't touch it," and you know, don't be careful.
Wow, it's that poisonous?
That's what it looks like. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I was surprised by that, but
Yeah.
they are taking precautions for sure. Um, in text messages, of course. So Marsha was busy on the internet, typing how much foxglove is fatal and how long does foxglove take to kill you.
How long
Again,
does foxglove take to kill my husband? I mean,
yeah,
delete, 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 delete.
stop
Any
again.
random person.
Public service message: stop typing these things in Google. Thank you.
Uh, See, I miss the days of like when you could go to do you remember when they used to have internet cafes?
Yeah,
Like
I
everywhere?
remember the Times Square internet cafes.
Yeah, but you could go to a place like that and just anonymously, like, that's where you go. Or like
Yeah,
library, right? Like the small library that has a little old computer terminal. That's where you go to research how to kill someone, not on your cell phone and then you put it back in your pocket. It
right.
was in incognito mode. They'll never catch me.
Oh, and by the way, I'm going to text my daughter, so
Yeah.
they'll never find us now, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
no connection there because the first person that they would look to would be the other person in the family, of course. Anyway, they They tried to poison him by putting the foxglove seeds in Harold's chili. And Harold ended up in the hospital with gastrointestinal issues and numbness on the left side of his face. But he did survive.
What? I thought you said he was dead.
Oh, no, this is the first poisoning attempt.
Oh, that's right. I thought you meant this was the one. Okay, yeah, because they tried 3 different times. Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
I'll keep up.
No, I can't keep up either. So they tried again with foxglove seeds, this time grinding up the seeds and placing it in a brownie. Again, he ate the brownie and he ended up right back in the hospital. So, I'm thinking as the husband, either my wife is a really bad cook or I should be pretty suspicious at this point, right?
Well, I don't know how closely how close were they those poisoning attempts to each other? Because if it
I
was
don't, I,
like
that
3 months,
I'm actually not sure.
if it
Yeah,
was like 3 or 4 months later, you wouldn't. And it's a brownie, it's not chili. I mean, you would kind of be like, "What's going on here?" And now I'm in the hospital. It's not like you just have diarrhea. I mean, you're in the
right.
hospital. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Well,
right. You
well,
might be.
there's also text messages that I'll get to in a bit
Of
that
course
of
they
course
are.
like kind of like hurry up, right? Like
Yeah,
let's get this thing going. Why, kind of
Jesus.
like why isn't this guy
Do it
dying? So
already.
ultimately they were not successful with the foxglove seeds, so they moved on.
Do a machine
Marsha
gun.
and Ashley ordered a half gallon of ethylene glycol for about $30. Um, People magazine reported that the probable cause affidavit in the probable cause affidavit that Ashley texted her mom saying, "The mail is here," smiley face. Marsha responded with a heart emoji on the message. So they ordered it. That cute. Yeah.
The
I love
poisons
ethylene.
arrived.
Yeah, I love ethylene glycol too.
Jesus God.
So the NIH says that ethylene glycol is a colorless, sweet tasting liquid commonly found in antifreeze, detergents, vehicle brake fluids, and paints. And because of that sweet taste, there are often accidental exposures. Makes sense. You've heard of
Yeah.
antifreeze being drunk by kids or dogs and things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, as little as 4 fluid ounces of it may kill an average sized man.
Wow.
Yeah. So sweet to the taste, but deadly to your body.
And I can
Um,
imagine that's not a. I mean, is there such thing as a fun death? But that would probably not be a great way to go out.
yeah,
I mean, just that
yeah.
kind of poison in your system. I mean, I imagine would be really, really uncomfortable.
I mean, I can't imagine just being I mean, just having something fatal and you're just dead. You
Well,
know
yeah,
you're dead.
but it's not like what I'm saying is that, it's not like, you like an old Shakespeare play or something, right? Where they drink the
Right.
poison, they're like, "Oh," they're
Yeah.
just they drink it and they're dead. This would
Very
not be
I'm
like
sure it's
that.
very, very
Very
painful and
painful where it's doing
terrible.
whatever to the inside of your stomach and your esophagus, and, that would God, you almost to poison someone in that way, you really have to hate them,
Isn't
right?
it like the cyanide pills that you take where you like started foaming in the mouth and stuff like that? Like
I don't
is
know if
that true?
cyanide's like that though,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't give that to astronauts and stuff like that. I mean, it was gonna be something that was really painful, you would think.
Yeah.
It would kinda be
That's
more
true.
like it's pretty quick, cyanide. But it's also one of those things where, like, if there's cyanide in someone's system and they've died, that's very suspicious, and it's something that would come up immediately on an autopsy that
Yeah.
there's no reason that they should have that in their system. So,
Yeah, and so looking back, like when you think of these seeds, and then you think of this kind of antifreeze, it's almost like you feel like they're looking in the backyard or they're in the garage looking for stuff, but that's actually not what happened. Like I said, in each case, they ordered the seeds and the glycol, and there were receipts to prove that they did so. So stupid. Um, and I talked about them starting to get really impatient. Weeks earlier, before this, Marsha had allegedly texted her daughter Ashley, and here it is. I, I need this to be over. Dot dot dot. I wish it would reach its climax and be done. LOL.
This is didn't we have something else? Like you found some story recently that we did.
There was an
It
LOL,
was there
right?
was an LOL in like the murder text, like, or no, it was like hiring a hitman. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I need this guy taken out. My husband taken out. Whatever. I can pay you later. LOL.
LOL.
Who is at the point of actually murdering someone or discussing legitimately murdering another human being, and there's an LOL that comes into your brain or thought pattern at all? That's crazy.
And because they're mother-daughter, did they really have to text each other? Like, aren't they seeing each other all the time? Couldn't they just like go out in the backyard or like go to the fabric store and like in the aisles like discuss what the meal was? Like, isn't it weird that they're just
You are
texting each?
you are
Yeah,
from the Midwest.
I know.
Can't they just get out of the yarn barn and like a normal person?
Let me tell you, the Joann's Fabric store visit was the most dreaded visit with parents that I experienced as a kid ever, and it still haunts me.
I actually have that same memory too. Yeah. Joann's
All right.
Fabrics as a kid, there's absolutely nothing of interest to a kid there. Like
Yeah,
you might see like an animal print, a funny
right.
like fabric that has like, oh, giraffes. And now I'm bored.
It doesn't last long
It
that you
doesn't
get
last
excited
long
about
at
such a
all.
thing, right? It's same with carpet, where you go to the carpet and drapes and flooring store.
Yeah, but at least you get to touch it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like different, that's a little
It,
different.
and it was shag carpet back then, so there was some texture to it, right?
Yeah.
So, um, then Marsha sent a text to her daughter Ashley. He's all in for root beer floats.
I'm just thinking of how you explain that in court. Like, oh no, we were just talking about root beer floats. We just get excited about them. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah, so they
You
give him a
know?
root beer float, and Jones later told police that Marsha texted her on the morning of December 20th, 2022, or I think it was 2022, and said he was acting drunk and loopy. And again, my question is, wait, this guy was having root beer floats for breakfast?
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird.
So Marsha waited 5 hours to call for an ambulance, but Harold he was already dead.
Wow. Did it say how much they put in of the stuff they put in?
I did
Because
not see that
yeah,
toxicology report. I'm sure it will come out. So, why are they doing this? What is the motive? And the hints that we're getting in the news reports says it was to get all of his quote hidden savings. So they were definitely out for this guy's money, and that's kind of how it works.
yeah, it is, man, and it's just that is, what do they always say in a murder, right? Follow the money.
Yeah,
Um, it's crazy, and when you think about people that have been killed for money, I not that I understand it or whatever agree with it, but if it was like, hey, I'm going to kill this, my stepdad or whatever, and I'm going to get $30 million.
right,
I understand a person coming to that, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But there are other people who do this kind of stuff for like a $10,000, insurance policy or something ridiculous,
right,
where it's like you would end a life for
yeah.
such a little, even
End of life, like
or a
literally.
100,000 or whatever it is. It's just crazy. It's just so like that's the answer you come up with.
Yeah, we keep running into these stories about people wanting other, to hire a hitman or to
Yeah,
have a hit out on, your nephew for an insurance policy. You remember that one
yeah,
that listeners will get to. Yeah, it's shocking and in the headlines and yeah. So a fast forward to present day, Harold is dead. His wife Marsha is dead, and Ashley Jones now faces a whole slew of charges, including murder, felony murder, conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy results in death, and consumer product tampering resulting in serious bodily injury. So, not good for her. And, we're literally in the midst of this being reported out. So, I would imagine within the next 6 months to a year that this will go to trial and we'll hear all the salacious details that we aren't just hearing in the news reports. So if it continues to get good, we'll probably come back and talk about this, in the next year. But I'm curious, kind of to wrap up my segment. Um, I'm curious, like what's the best if you're gonna poison someone, what's the best way to do it? Like, do you want them to
I'm not
do you want them to
answering
die?
that. I'm not answering that. That could be used against me someday.
That's true. Well, unless, I
Like,
mean, do you want them to die right away? Do you want it to look like an accident? Is it a pill or is it a liquid? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what's the best technique here, man.
I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on how you feel about the person. Again, if it's a I don't really hate them, but they got a lot of money and I want it, you'd kind of be like, we'll make it. I'll do it quick, you know,
Yeah,
done. If you really hated, it was like a husband who had abused a wife for years and she
right.
hated him, and I could see then wanting to make it painful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's
But
so
it's
hard for me to even think about how I would ever want to kill somebody or was going to if I wanted to. I just have never had the honest to God thought of like I would wish I could kill that person.
well, it's a good thing.
It is, but I mean,
It
it's.
but think about how easy it is to look something like this up on the internet today. Like,
Yeah,
to just I mean, again, go to the library or the 1998 internet cafe if you're going to do your research. But like, it ain't hard. It really isn't. You can really find everything on the internet. Someone's written an article about it, or
yeah,
even the NIH, National Institute of Health, is going to have here's the things that are poisonous guideline, right? Because if someone is accidentally poisoned, you need to be able to look that up too. So there's all kinds of ways to get that information.
yeah. But it's always going to be traced back to you. I mean
Yeah.
that's the thing. Um, here's a recommendation: don't murder,
Okay.
and if you do, just I don't know, do it quick and don't
Don't
plan it
text.
out, don't text, don't email, don't just do it and then claim insanity or like what is in the heat of the moment kind of.
Yeah. Don't buy ethylene glycol in bulk.
And don't go out to like Walmart and buy. I love when I hear these stories about and there's so many of them where like there's a murder and then they go, well, where was this guy, our suspect? Where was he at on that day? And the guy goes to like Walmart and his shopping list or Home Depot, and it's like a sawzall, rope, tarps, bleach and cleaner. I mean, just fucking like murder, like the murder kit in one shopping, it's just
They should have that as an end cap at Walmart, like the murder kit, where it's like everyday prices falling and you'll be able to get the whole kit and it's just easier that way, right?
yeah. And then when you buy it, they just immediately report you to the police.
Right.
That's actually a kind of a brilliant thing. Like,
They
you
run
want
a
to buy that? No, it's on sale. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. Can you scan your QR code / background check
Right.
information?
Yeah. 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 And here's your free GPS tracker.
Well, that was Murder by Root Beer Float. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back after the break with Sean's story. Stay tuned.
All right, Jason, we're back. And that was a really interesting story you had. I'm going to bring the macabre factor down just a little bit
Okay.
in my segment here. We were talking about breakfast earlier, and I was asking you if you had ever heard of or knew that there was a maple syrup black market or maple syrup cartel.
Nope. No. And this is, I love mob or cartel stories, so I'm shocked I haven't run across this one.
Yeah, well, Canada obviously is where this takes place. Not only because it's called the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist, but because I think if you're talking about maple syrup, that is where you're going to head. Canada, as most people know, is famous for maple syrup. And here's some facts. I'm going to give you a quick fact. I looked this up as I was researching this. As I said, everybody knows that's something that Canada is famous for, but I didn't know Quebec alone produces over 96% of Canada's maple products, and Canada produces 75% of the global maple product market. Do you know that?
Nope.
That's crazy. 75% of anything with real maple syrup in it in the world comes from Canada, and almost almost 100% of that comes from one area. in
And you
Canada.
never hear like
That's
you never
crazy.
there's no branding on maple syrup bottles that says Quebec anywhere. We never see that, right? It's always just
Yeah,
yeah,
they source it out and they sell it.
yeah.
I do have to give you a little quick history lesson. This is very quick. You're not going to get sleepy on me. And that's going to help you understand this story and how it even came to be and how it was even possible for this heist that I'm going to tell you about. In 1966, an official organization known as the Quebec Maple Syrup Producers, or QMSP, was initiated, and they set yearly quotas for maple syrup producers. Right, so all the people who have these giant maple farms, tree farms, and do this coalition got together, government run, and they oversee all the production and sale of all maple products from Quebec. In the year 2000, they established a reserve because they had so much of a supply. And in 2011, they had actually had a surplus of even in all their storage facilities that they had in this reserve were full, right? So they expanded their storage to a warehouse in St. Louis de Blanchard, Quebec, or Blanchard, probably
Legit.
just white toast in that. All the French Canadians listening are gonna, but I'm calling it St. Louis Blanchard, de Blanchard. 1 year later, that location alone housed $30 million worth of maple syrup. That's think about that.
Just think of all the French toast you'd have
Oh
to
my
pour that
God,
on
I'd have
top,
like
right?
12 pieces of maple of French toast with all that syrup. Amazing. Just a big drum of it, and I dip my French toast in it. But that's crazy.
Yeah.
Just that one building alone. I mean, I did not have any idea how big and how much money was in maple syrup in that market. I just didn't. It's not something everyone eats.
It's like the modern day spice trades of old, right? It just happens
Yeah.
to be in the form of maple syrup.
Yeah, just that one warehouse with storage warehouse was $30 million worth of maple syrup. So shortly after that warehouse in St. Louis de Blanchard began to be filled with barrels of syrup, a man named Avik Karen, whose spouse was a co-owner of that warehouse, met a man named Richard Vieres. Vieres was known in the maple syrup world as a barrel roller. That's someone who's found creative or legal ways around the strict regulations that maple syrup producers had to adhere to. Vieras had admittingly participated in the maple syrup black market for a decade prior to this point of meeting this other guy, Karen. And some referred to these black market syrup dealers as a kind of cartel, as I mentioned, which is a little bit tongue-in-cheek funny, but also when you think of the amount of money that I just talked about, that just from one warehouse, like it would be a cartel. If it's a black market, that truly is a cartel. It's just not with drugs, you know?
And it's like the perfect candidate of a product or a thing that no one's thinking about every day as
Yeah.
the black market kind of under the radar. Like cops aren't looking for the maple syrup guys, right? They're getting the guys,
He's
speeding
bringing
down the street.
fentanyl in.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. What do you got? Trunk full of maple syrup in unmarked bottles. You're good.
And he's got he's got like the little bottles in his coat that he gives the police.
Yeah.
Instead of a 20,
Yeah.
we can make this problem go away, officer.
Yeah. Opens his coat and he's got the
Yeah,
little vials in there. First one's
back of a
free.
van. Yeah.
Yeah. Fast forward 10 months. This is now August of 2012. An inspector for the QMSP that
Mhm.
oversees all this was doing his annual inspection of storage facilities and was climbing up a stack of barrels at the St. Louis de Blanchard warehouse when one of the barrels nearly fell over. Now, these barrels are typically, when full, almost 600 pounds.
Right.
So this was highly irregular, and there's no reason there should be an empty barrel in there. So this was suspicious immediately. Upon further inspection, he realized that numerous other barrels were empty as well. And he also noticed that some of the barrels were dirty, which was, again, highly irregular for that facility that was normally exceptionally clean. and you have to be. It's food.
Yeah.
He also noticed rust on some of the barrels. That's concerning because maple syrup doesn't oxidize. It wouldn't cause rust from no matter how long it's stored in there,
Interesting.
basically. The QMSP contacted the provincial police force, and an investigation was immediately underway. After further inspection, it was discovered that some of the barrels that were thought to be full of syrup were actually filled with water. There were no security cameras in the warehouse, but after an exhaustive investigation, rather, including over 300 witness interviews and 40 search warrants issued, eventually investigators established that the theft was an inside job, and 4 men were arrested. It only in Canada.
Right.
There, I know, again, like the amount of money this is warrants that kind of investigation, but it's like, I'm just picturing in Canada, like, the maple syrup's gone, eh? Round up the boys,
Oh, I saw a rusty barrel down at the warehouse.
Yeah, don't you know?
That's more Minnesota. That was
Yeah,
pretty bad.
that's like Fargo, Minnesota, eh?
Yeah.
And we love you, Canadians.
Yeah.
One of those men arrested was Richard Vallarez, who was decided to have been the ringleader and worked with 3 other men to pull off the heist that lasted 10 months. The men were siphoning the syrup out of barrels and into their own at another location, and then filling them with water and bringing them back to the storage facility. They would then take the Canadian gold to New Brunswick, where the price and production controls were not as stringent. It was then sold and shipped out of Ontario and to the US for sale as well. So, if you've had maple syrup in the last decade, real maple syrup, Eddie, you might have actually had some from this giant
Stash.
historic heist. All told, the thieves made out with over 2,700 tons of maple syrup, valued at over $18 million in 2012 in 2012 currency. Police recovered nearly 450 tons. Some of that they had to be destroyed because it was deemed not safe for human consumption. I assume because of how it was stored or handled while it was being transported. All 4 men were convicted, with Vallarez being sentenced to 7 years and 10 months in prison for his role. All 4 men and several others involved felt that their actions were not theft, as the QMSP's supply and management practices were unfair to producers. So, I gotta say that it's kind of probably, and I don't know much about this, and I don't know their regulations and stuff, but it sounds like it's very strict. And you have to think about like farmers now. If you grow corn or some crop where now these big companies, what is it, Monsanto, so they come in and they say, hey, by the way, your seeds were all originated from our seed. We own all your product. I mean, like that really happens.
GMO, and you got all kinds of things. I mean, listen, my Grandpa Hoke ran a 600-acre dairy and crops farm up in Wisconsin in the day, and it wasn't quite like it is today, of course, but you still had to be careful, and you couldn't just spray certain things, and although they did on everything, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe maybe that's an excuse, that those guys have, but maybe there is actually something to it where it's like, you guys have made it so hard. There's a monopoly of, 2 or 3 big producers, and it's so hard for the little guy. I don't know, but
I always wonder in stuff like this, I wonder, do they think, like, how long is this gonna go before we would get caught? Like, is this kind of like, this is so good,
yeah.
and we're gonna just keep doing this, but we don't ever believe we're gonna get caught? Or we should only do this for 2 years, and then we should get out because there's barrels of water, there's rusted barrels. Like someone's gonna find out at some
And you
point.
know the business. It's like, you know that maple
Right.
syrup should not rust in these containers. So yeah, and you
Yeah.
know there's a yearly inspection. It's really odd. Yeah, it is. That these guys would have continued on with this and taken so much. They probably could have gotten away with it if it, even like $1 million or $2 worth of
Right.
product they took. The 18 million in today's money, that's almost $25 million.
Yeah. And this is greed taking over. This
Yeah.
is feeling invincible.
Yeah.
I'm also struck by like how this investigation unfurled at all. So
Yeah.
again, showing up to the warehouse and seeing these things, it's not like there's a dead body lying around. It's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, there's water in this barrel. And the fact that they're actually able to follow this all the way through to find the culprits, to bust these guys, to understand that this is a $30 million heist
Yeah.
of maple syrup, that's pretty impressive, I have to
It's
say. Like,
100% impressive, I think. I mean,
like,
it is.
yeah, it's not just an accident that they discovered this. So a little detective work on the maple syrup is impressive.
Well, they interviewed over 300 people. I mean, they, like I said, 40 search warrants issued. I mean, like it was not a small operation. I mean, you think about in interviewing 300, identifying and interviewing 300 people. That's a lot.
Yeah,
But I
I
guess when
wonder if
there's, when you've discovered there's almost $25 million worth of product on the line, it becomes worth it at that point. The story actually was featured in the Netflix documentary or docuseries Dirty Money, and
mm,
Amazon is currently producing a comedy series called The Sticky, featuring Jamie Lee Curtis on this story.
oh really?
Yeah, it's really
Oh,
fascinating. I mean, it's you know,
that's kind of the perfect heist movie or series where bad stuff supposedly happens, but no one dies. But like the circumstances around maple syrup makes you want to watch it.
yeah, it's that's what attracted me to the story when I was reading
Yeah,
it. And I was like, number one, it's actually referred to as the Great Maple Syrup Canadian Maple Syrup Heist. I mean, it's like that's what it's known as. It's the largest. I think it still is. Certainly at the times, the largest theft in Canada history. I mean, so
that would be really hard to be one of those investigators or inspectors to like show up and not like bring a little like coffee can or something to scoop up a bunch of maple syrup that would essentially be a year's supply for you at home
right,
probably.
yeah,
Like do you think they, if we ever went to one of their houses like somewhere in the basement, there's a closet that opens and this guy's like, well, as long as I was there, I just scooped a bunch of this stuff up.
I don't know. Maybe they have that maybe a lot of Canadians have that anyway. Just like
True.
the secret safe of high primo
Right.
maple syrup in the
Yeah. It's like a wine cellar but maple
right,
syrup.
yeah, yeah. But I'll tell you, you I grew up on Aunt Jemima
Yep.
and, log cabin and that stuff that is not maple syrup at all. I don't think there's any maple syrup in it at all. It's just flavored, it's
Yeah.
sugar and corn syrup and stuff, but and chemicals. But now we try to use just real maple syrup, and I mean, there's a big difference.
I can tell you that I haven't had those syrups or any maple syrup in probably 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Um, like even I eat pancakes dry with, well, I don't even eat pancakes anymore, but when I was eating pancakes, just be a little fruit on top with
It's
no syrup.
disgusting. A dry pancake. Here's
Yeah,
the
but now I'm
what's the
keto, so I don't even eat pancakes and French toast anymore. I don't miss it.
disgusting. That's
I
our
know.
episode. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us for a little while to talk about odd food crimes. I'm Sean Kipe. He's Jason Hoke, and this is how it all went south. See you next time.
Yep, see you next time.